As of this morning, sources tell CNN that leaders at the Department of Justice have not spoken to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino since the middle of last week, when he implied that he could no longer continue in his role as long as Attorney General Pam Bondi was there. Bongino didn't go into work on Friday after an apparent fallout with Bondi over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. President Trump has not only sided with Bondi, but is now telling his supporters to, quote, not waste any time or energy on the Epstein case, while claiming on social media that the files were written by Democrats with absolutely zero evidence pointing the finger at former President Barack Obama, among others. This has infuriated many in MAGA world, considering this is what top members of the administration had promised.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go ever. Ever.
We have flight logs. We have information, names that will come out.
President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed.
Wow. Okay. So
a lot of documents.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises.
Yeah, all right.
Let's get some perspective from former FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mike Feinberg. He says he was pressured to resign from the Bureau earlier this year after being singled out for his long-standing friendship with former FBI official Peter Strzok. Remember, Trump and allies have targeted Strzok, who played a senior role in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Mike, thanks so much for being with us. It looks like your video just went off, but can you hear me? There he is.
Can you hear me, Mike? I can. My apologies. We're experiencing a bit of weather here.
No worries. I'm glad that you're indoors and that our connection is secured. What's your reaction to the Department of Justice after promising to put out flight logs and client lists, et cetera, their plan that they're not going to release any new documents on the matter of Jeffrey Epstein?
This is another reason that when picking senior government officials, you really want to try and find sober-minded, pragmatic men and women who know better than to get ahead of facts before they've actually discovered anything. Patel, Bongino, and to a lesser extent, Bondi really spent, depending on how you time it, the past 4 to 8 years using every position they've held to undermine the credibility of the Justice Department. It's not really a surprise now that their own base doesn't believe them when they make official statements.
Is it your view that these folks ran on promises to uncover this wide-ranging conspiracy that involved figures, including former presidents, and then when they took a closer look, there was no there, and now they're stuck with what their supporters see as a cover-up?
Yeah, look, this is the difficulty with fomenting conspiracy theories. It's very easy to build them up and tell people that they're not getting the whole truth from the government. But once you become a member of that government, it's very difficult to convince them that all of a sudden they can believe you. This problem facing the FBI and DOJ is entirely the making of Patel, Bongino, and Bondi.
Do you sympathize at all with the view that there was a significant amount of information around the Epstein case that would lead to skepticism about whether the public was getting the truth or not? There's a lot of skepticism about his death by suicide, about his connections to all sorts of world figures. So I think naturally a lot of folks would have significant questions. Are you saying that you don't think that this investigation was shaped in any way so as to suppress information or deceive the public?
No, I don't think that. You know, I was not in the New York field office when this investigation was going on, but the Bureau rumor mill is a pretty efficient machine. And, you know, I generally didn't hear about investigations being influenced by political or media considerations. I know some people have that point of view. It's a point of view that has been inculcated by people like Bongino, but I never saw anything like that. And I certainly never heard any rumors or any sort of assertion whatsoever that this investigation was being slow walked or that there was a cover up of some sort or that it wasn't being handled by the book.
There is also
Bongino being in limbo is bad news for Trump, and from my perspective at least, it strikes me as a conscious choice, because sometimes in these moments Donald wants you to come out and say something, and if you don't, that's actually worse for him. You've seen a lot of Trump allies in the last 24, 48 hours come out and bend the knee to him. Now, some of them are still saying they want Pam Bondi's head, but most of them are saying, well, I actually trust the president, and of course it's all shameless bending of the knee to Trump, right? That all of a sudden I don't care about the thing that we've been talking about nonstop since 2015, right? Like all of this sort of stuff, right? And so when you have someone like Bongino who's still quote unquote in limbo, it scares Trump, and this is where it gets even worse.
Of the FBI and current SVP for global operations with the Soufan Group, Christopher O'Leary. Jake, is that a crazy question to ask? Is this Jeffrey Epstein going to break at least a portion of MAGA?
Well, I was calling around on this, and no one I've spoken with so far can name a remotely equivalent moment in terms of the MAGA base, because I'm not even sure if it's fair to describe this as a fissure or a split necessarily. This is basically a bubbling revolt from the base, and I think ultimately this is a classic example of the dog who caught the car, but also of audience capture. Because to your point on Dan Bongino and his job, well, which job? Is it his job as a talking head and a potential future gig at Fox News or a streaming deal with a podcaster? Or is it his actual current day job as deputy director of the FBI?
Which career has been ruined, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
So the anger that we're seeing at Turning Point USA, is that also equivalent to the anger that we're seeing online or in other college student portions of the Trump base?
It definitely seems like if you take a look through X and some of the prominent accounts, your message boards, what have you, this is a widely shared thing on the base. And this has been so central in the sense that there's this elite group of people who are not telling you the truth, and they're committing heinous acts, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Don't believe what anyone tells you. Well, now these outsiders are on the inside, and even though, they had this insurgency in 2016, they don't have a clear answer, and it's either that they were lying about this, the list on Pam Bondi's desk, or it's something else, and I'm not sure what the correct answer is going to be as far as the base goes.
You're seeing prominent folks like Steve Bannon coming out. You just saw Laura Ingraham, Megyn Kelly. Who else? There's been Nick Fuentes. He believes MAGA is dead because of this. He's saying good riddance. That's also something. It is Tucker Carlson. It's getting a lot of folks in line with an idea that this administration is not being truthful.
Right. Well, and is guilty of the same sins that it charged the Democrats with when they were in charge. Guilty of the same types of extreme cover-ups, right? I mean, because that's what this story is at its core. Epstein resonated because it connected to the QAnon-inspired conspiracy theory of these pedophilia rings controlled by powerful Democratic power brokers. And, well, it turns out that it looks like the story was what the Justice Department and the investigators were saying all along. And he killed himself, and there's really not much more here. So the problem is, how do you move on from that? Some of the conservative media is already moved on. Like, you turn on Fox News, guess what they're talking about? They're talking about the Biden auto pen scandal and his signing a bunch of pardons that he didn't really sign or approve himself. So they're moving on. But I think if you listen to the average voter, this isn't just a Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson thing. This is MAGA is mad. The average rank and file grassroots type person who bought into the idea that Trump was going to preside over a new kind of Justice Department that finally unearthed and exposed these frauds for who they really are. These people that Dan Bongino insisted for years on his program were constantly lying to you. Well, guess what? They weren't. And it's kind of hard to walk that back.
Hoisted on their own petard.
Yeah.
Is what I've been saying. You're now, by the way, Chris, an MSNBC national security analyst. So congratulations on that role and welcome officially in that capacity. This is interesting because we've seen conspiracies be tightly entwined with Donald Trump's base of support now for years. Since 2015, 2016, there was Pizzagate, there was QAnon. And that did bubble over. We saw in January 6th, QAnon supporters storming the Capitol. But we haven't been hearing about QAnon lately. Is this the new version of it? Have they migrated to Jeffrey Epstein?
Yes. And so this is QAnon adjacent. As he pointed out, it has a lot of the same components as anti-government, deep state conspiracy, protection of children, which there was a really disproportional number of women who joined QAnon in the early days because they were drawn into the protection of children. But then they needed, to off-ramp onto something. You can't tell people that their ideology and their identity is wrong. They believe in it. So you have to pivot to something else. And they've pivoted to Jeffrey Epstein, which is why the Attorney General can't tell them now, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Maybe there is more to it than we've been told. After all, I mean, he was a very prominent person. The only person in jail for the crimes right now is Ghislaine Maxwell. He has been photographed with just about everybody, including, by the way, Donald Trump on multiple occasions. Is there really? Can we really say definitively?
So
not to wade into the feeder swamp, but
I would
tell
say
me.
if the FBI agents and analysts were allowed to do their job without any political influence, you would get the truth that would eventually come out in court proceedings or, if a statement was released. But what you have are political actors. And I would say Pam Bondi's probably in pretty comfortable shape. Some would argue with me, but what President Trump wants is not what he got in the first term. He got Attorney General Sessions, who he was very frustrated with. Then he got Attorney General Barr, who eventually, held the line on the election denial conspiracy. Now he has somebody who is a fierce loyalist. He also has that in Director Kash Patel. Dan Bongino's got, a decision to make. Does he see this as a career in national security and a vocation like I saw it and like every FBI agent that I ever worked with saw it? You do this for decades, or is this a flash in the pan? And you're likely going...
This is part of the MAGA revolt. And again, this silence is deafening. You've heard that saying before, the silence is deafening. Sometimes silence speaks much louder than voices can. And Bongino not coming out and giving a press conference is the press conference. Do you understand what I'm saying, right? The second highest person at the FBI. Again, he hasn't quit the job. He hasn't been fired. He hasn't taken a leave. He hasn't been suspended. He is, as I speak, and maybe as you watch this, God, who knows, is a top FBI official. And his press conference is the info coming out. Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily that Bongino is directly personally leaking his dissatisfaction, which would be a subterfuge press conference. But what he's allowing to happen, at least, is let his dissatisfaction go out into the media, into these press conferences and whatnot, and he is not correcting it because he knows that he doesn't want to be seen, right now at least, on Trump's team on this issue.